Welcome to the Collins Family Reunion Black History Moment, sponsored by our Historical Committee of the Collins Family Reunion. This is the voice of Tamba Giles. Although I'm not present, I still could give a little history for our presentation today. We're going to trace the lineage of George Collins by listening, storytelling, census reports, by knowing our past history and helping shape our future. Our family reunion goes as far back as George Collins, who was born in December of 1872. Black male who was the head of his household, who was married to Liza Collins in the year of 1890. Now, George Collins was married twice, so there were children under his first wife, Liza Collins, and there are children in the room who are under his second marriage, Verna T. I'll explain later. Here's some artifacts from our family. As you can see here, this is the Collins plate. I think it was a family reunion plate that's been passed around. And on the plate are the names of some of the children of George Collins. And I believe I think these are all of his children, all of their names on here. So you can see that. Another artifact that we have is from some earlier programs from family reunions before, which lists the generations of all of George Collins' children. Here's an artifact from Maureen Hayward, who talks about her grandfather, Sam and Laura Collins, and Sam was one of the youngest sons, one of the sons, excuse me, of George Collins. And this is a list or a legacy list of all of the names of children, grandchildren, great grandchildren, great great grandchildren, great 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 grandchildren of George Collins. This is an artifact from a reunion from 30 years ago. That was in 1995, 30 years ago, at the Collins family reunion. And again, you can see on the names of all of the children, which the roots are George and Liza Collins, as well as George and Verna Collins, and all of their children and the descendants of the Collins clan. So here's a picture here of George and Liza Collins, married in 1890, and unto this union were Sam Collins, Wade Collins, Lake Collins, Mary Collins, Betty Osborne, or Betty Collins Osborne, and Callie Bell, and that's Mary Collins Shannon that was left off. I apologize. Again, here's a picture of old Papa George. Pretty good looking man there. So you see where you get your good looking genes from. Now, in his second marriage, he had Noon Elaine Hall, Raymond Collins, Adele Collins, Aura Lee Collins, Adine Simpson, JT, Lonnie, and Leon. Here is a census report from Ancestry.com. I always encourage those to take that test. I think it's a great way to know who you're related to. And we've got George Collins and Liza Collins, and these are children under his first marriage. So, who are we and why are we here? Well, we are the descendants of George Collins, who was born around 1872 in Keachai, Louisiana. He was a farm laborer in the Reconstruction era. He was married to Liza Collins in 1890, to whom we listed those children that were born. And then he remarried again at the age of 71. You young stallion, you. He married a young Vernon T. Collins. And to this union, there were other children that were added according to the 1940 census. And here's some pictures of um, George Collins' sons under Verna T. Many of you may recognize some of those faces that are in the room and on the picture. Rest in power, Raymond Collins, who passed away this year. Here are more children Pictures of children under George Collins and Verna T. We also have George and Liza Collins. I am missing some pictures, so I do apologize. In this slide, there's a picture of some of the other descendants. Here's one of George Collins' daughters under his first marriage. So we've got here's George and Liza. Here's one of their daughters. I believe this is Mary Collins Shannon. Um, uh, and there are descendants of Mary Collins Shannon in the room. Anyone who's seen those white shoes, and I believe that she was a singer, from what I hear, stories that have been told. Very classy lady. Here is another son of George Collins. This is Sam Collins, and there are descendants of Sam Collins that are in the room. Again, this is from his first marriage. So we've got Mary Collins Shannon. We've got Sam Collins. And I believe this is a descendants of, hope I've got this right. That's it. Maybe orally. I think I've got that right. If not, someone is probably correcting me as this video is going on. If I am incorrect, please see Corey Phillips and Noon, I believe, and I think I think I've got the right family name there. Also, descendants of George Collins. And we've got descendants of, I believe, Betty Osborne or Betty Collins Osborne, and that would be cousin Sally. And if you know anything about cousin Betty or Aunt Betty, depending on how you knew her, she lived to be, I believe, 102 or 104. Lived a ripe old age. She had a July 4th celebration at her house every July 4th in the northwest portion of Houston. She grew her own plants, cooked her own food, very independent. And this was her daughter, cousin Sally, who lived right next door. And that was a mother and daughter duo at their time. And they're, I believe, relatives of that extension of the Collins family. That would be under under Betty Osborne. Now, here are a list of names of relatives that were in attendance at last year's reunion in 2023, and we'd like to add to that name, add to those names. And so these are the descendants of Britt Collins, which is one of the sons of George Collins, and you can see that list. I'll give you a few moments to look through it. If there's some names that you see that are missing, please speak to a committee member to add their name to our database. We also need contacts for all of these names and how they're connected. So if it's Regina and Shavaria and how they're connected, or Shania and Sanderson, or Shamara and Naya. If there are any misspellings, please charge it to my head and not to my heart. I was kind of reading off of the papers that I have. So these are the names we have under Britt Collins. Take a moment to read through. Under Raymond Collins. Under Lake Collins. And we need more information. As you can see, under Lake Collins, there are no names. So if there are any descendants, or if he had any children, grandchildren, great grandchildren, our historical committee would like to get those names and try to contact those family members. Under JT Collins, we've got some names here. If there are any continued children, grandchildren, or great great grandchildren, or great grandchildren under JT Collins, please feel free to share that with our historical committee or one of our family reunion committee members in a database so we can collect more names and reach out to those family members. As you can see, the Collins family is strong. Under Lonnie B. Collins. Under Johnny Collins. under Noon Collins, under Adine Collins, under Aura Lee, names under Callie Collins. That's Callie Bell Collins. Under Betty Collins Osborne. Again, feel free to add names, family. Under Mary Collins Shannon. Under Leon Collins. Under Adele Collins Ferguson, which I believe I may have copied twice. Wade Collins, I did do some research on him. He did not have any children. He and his wife, uh, and they lived in Shelby, Texas. If you notice, you may recognize names of a family member in your family who has the same name. That was a tradition in African American culture to preserve your family's heritage is by renaming your children or grandchildren after another relative. That was a way that families could kind of stay together and knew whose child was whose child. And with family, if they were separated by loved ones, by slave masters. And you've got a larger list here for Sam Collins because he was one of George Collins' youngest children at the time, and so that's why you see so many descendants and so many children. Also, he had a lot of children. He had a lot of his children had a lot of children. And I'm sure that there are names that are missing off of this list. Please feel free to add to this list. This also serves as a database if there is an unfortunate circumstance where you're having to write names in a program and you need the names of all of your loved ones and family members. So keep that database going. We need our family's names. So now that you've gotten all of that rich history, there are some new discoveries. So some of our new discoveries within the last 2 years is that we were only able to trace back to George Collins, but one of our new discoveries through Ancestry.com was that Carolyn Collins is the mother of George Collins. Where was she born? She was born in Louisiana, but her father's birth, birthplace was what? Mississippi. And so that was one of our new discoveries a couple of years ago. So we can actually go further back than George Collins. His mother's name was Carolyn Collins, and oh my goodness, we've got some information about Caroline Collins. She was born um, around. We've got two Caroline Collins. So if you see there, if you look at the information here, we're still reading to see. I believe this is the Caroline Collins from the first ward of DeSoto Parish, which would be George Collins' mother, um, Caroline Collins. And he was around 10 at that time. And I noticed that there were two Charles Collins, so I had to go and do a little work. So Charles Collins is considered to be the father of George Collins, and so his wife was Caroline, and we were able to get some more information um, based off of the birth date as well as ages. So that's how we were able to find out through the census. Charles Collins. So and what do we know about Charles Collins? We were able to find that Charles Collins was born in Mississippi. So that now moves our family from Louisiana to Mississippi. And what is the significance of that? In Mississippi, there was a plantation called the Collins Plantation. Actually, it was featured in a movie. It was considered one of the worst um, plantations in the South because of the cruelty of the owner, the enslaved owner, and it's believed that he um, he sent his one of his sons to, which is now Keachai, Louisiana, to have his own land and plantation, and so that's where probably our ancestors, our enslaved ancestors, were sent from Mississippi, near Jackson, Mississippi, at the Collins Plantation, all the way down to Keachai. And if you look at an earlier map of of Mississippi to Keachai, that is now Route 70. And so that was probably the direction that they came and traveled that path till they got to the northern part of Louisiana. Um, and so our family can be traced as far back as Mississippi and Tennessee, if we to continue to trace our heritage. Some things that we know about about Caroline Collins is Caroline Collins had had more than children than just George. We're familiar with George, but George also had a brother named Matthews Collins, a Moses Collins, a Marianne Collins, and a Lucy Collins. And so that's more information that we have about our family as we continue to pull through our family guide and history. When you get a chance, and actually, I would suggest that you add closed caption to the video. There's a wonderful video with Eliza Collins telling her memories of George Collins from when she was a child and a teenager. I believe this is on our family website. If not, it can be uploaded. It's a great story about who George Collins was, and kind of gives some historical data on that. So check that out when you get a chance. Let's do a little quizzing, and you may need help from a family member to answer these questions. So, where was George Collins born? Can you name six of George Collins's children? What were George Collins' parents' names? What did George Collins have sitting up in his house that scared his children and grandchildren? That's a wonderful story. If there are any young people in the room or even older generation, make sure you have some time to share that story. That's a wonderful story. And lastly, what did George Collins wear around his waist? Find a family member to answer those questions. We are one amazing family. Thank you for taking the time to share. So wish I could be there this year, but this is the history of the George Collins descendants. Thank you for sharing and thank you for your time.